Now, Alvin,
Pleasure to be here.
you've done the score mix for some of Hollywood's top blockbuster movies, the Kingsman, Kung Fu Panda, the Meg, Eddie the Eagle, just to name a few, and more recently Mulan as well. Like, how is it that you've kept such a low profile? How is it that we don't know about you?
Not anymore. Right, yeah.
We didn't
You know,
know about you until today.
you know, I do. Well, I'll be honest. I really do appreciate anonymity. I think it's fun to have my own life, and like I think I never, I didn't go out to seek this as like a thing of like fame, right? I mean, the music industry is so vast, right? And all of us, at least in my case, I I didn't think I would end up working on all these cool projects. I just wanted to go to school, study music, and then move out to LA and kind of try my luck, to be honest. And a lot of us who are behind the scenes, be it from Malaysia or anywhere else, we do lead pretty quote unquote normal lives. We go to a mama, we go wherever, and I think part of that is there's only that many amount of people that can be on screen, or that many people that can be on stage and all that. And as for me, I think I kind of relate to just a little bit of being at home, and I think there's a little less pressure. And I think because also being Malaysian, I really like to lepak. And if you're like, if you're if you're in front, you really you're kind of meeting people all the time, and I think a lot of the freedom's taken away in that way. Not saying it's a bad thing. It's just it's part. It comes with the territory.
Who are some of the most famous people that you've met so far? Name drop a little.
Name drop. Well, funnily enough, a lot of people who I meet that are quote unquote well known, I usually see them on the streets, right? Like I would walk with my now wife. We're walking down the street somewhere in Venice, California, and we walked past this guy who's like, he's got swag, got some glasses, and like holding the arm, and I did a double take, and I asked her like, "Is that Robert Downey Jr.?" And she was like, "Yeah, that's and like he's just with his mom hanging around in town, kind of going to get ice cream or whatever. We've met. I've met Craig Robinson, who shops at like the grocery store down the street, just because I don't know. It's like it's kind of weird. In the studio, obviously, I've been fairly lucky to meet, there's the guitar player from Maroon 5, Jesse Carmichael, who, I've gotten to work with him, Patrick Stump of Fall Out Boy, Tyson Ritter of All American Rejects, obviously people like Hans Zimmer, the composer, and and being in the studio, you see a lot of people come in and out, and right now, I can't really think of on top of my head how many other people that I've kind of been fortunate enough to meet. But I would say, generally it's always someone's always in the studio, and someone comes in and comes out. I mean, like Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, I met once. Who else?
Did you meet Christina Aguilera because she recorded the Mulan soundtrack?
I didn't. She was I think she was on tour, so she recorded on tours. Unfortunately, with a lot of this big projects, everyone's not just on one thing, and so they could be somewhere in the world, and they'll drop by a recording studio and they do it, and they send files over. And with the interview nowadays, we can do it over the internet or wherever, and it's fairly easy to get files.
What does a score mixer do? Like, how is it different from producing or composing music for a film? Because, I mean, I look at your IMDb profile, and it's like score mixing. You're doing score mixing for most of these films, right?
Yeah.
So what do you do as a score mixer?
The score is basically, it comes from the word underscore, which is like if you ever seen a movie back in the day before it was theater, there's the orchestra in the pit, and they play to the scene to enhance the emotion of the scene, right? And back in the day, it was just orchestra. So a score mixer came from a recording engineer who worked at a stage, and when movies started being made, they started recording these things, and they just, did a rough balancing, and, off they go. Cause, everything's on tape back in before, like we call it back in the day. And so they after that, you know, people started kind of experimenting music. So they started incorporating keyboards and synths and guitars and bass. So what ends up happening is you need someone to balance it all. And the only way to balance it all is to have someone who's, you know, who understands the balances of an orchestra as versus a band and how to kind of blend it together. Now the score mixer is different from the mixer in the film where they do the dialogue and the sound effects and like big explosions and all that. What my job does as a score mixer is to literally balance the music and put it all in, like, you know, so nowadays people are now in Atmos, so like you deal with the Atmos effects and how you make the music envelope you and give you a emotional reaction towards the music that then supports the picture that then gives you a really good movie going experience. And so obviously, you know, that's part of the job. And the other part is score producing, you know, like obviously a composer writes the melodies, right? You know, it's funny because we're talking about people being behind the scenes, and composers, you know, music's 50% of the, I think music's 50% of the movie. And so the composer writes the melodies, right? They'll think, oh, you know, I'll write this melody, and this, you know, this big fat guy comes in, and you have a tuba go boom, 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 and then, you know, you have like a really skinny guy, and you're like a piccolo go woo, you know. So that gives you like a basic idea of like how a composer works. Then a composer will throw that to like an orchestrator, and they'll flash it out to the orchestra. They say, oh, you know, like this might not work with this instrument or whatever. And so that's like the composer basically writes melodies and writes it to the scene. And then the producer takes what he writes or what he or she writes and tries to kind of tie it all together. And sometimes with technical knowledge or with understand of dealing with musicians, and try to kind of package it all together and kind of present it to the listener as like, here's how it should be, you know, like the composer creates a gift and like the score producer kind of wraps it up and presents it to people.
Right.
And in the mix, you are there, the mixer.
As a mixer, I sometimes play the score producer role, as in like, you know, we have to deal with, like, for example, you know, one day like let's say for example let's say Sheila E from Prince, you know, like Michael Jackson's drummer or whatever, comes in, and she's like, she can tell her to play, but like you need to kind of help like understand what the score is and help take her kind of specialties and kind of marry it together, make sure that it sounds like, oh, it sounds like Sheila E, but in the context of this score. And then after that, you take that and you go mix it together with the orchestra that happened, or with whatever instrument they use. And I think that's the part where I kind of straddle the line of both, and sometimes help the performance on top of the crafting of the sonics in the score.
So you're like a score chef.
You know what? I tried explaining that to people as a chef. Exactly. Yes. You know, the ingredient is the composer, right? He comes up with the idea of it, and then yes, you know, I put it all together with all the ingredients and kind of played it out.
Now, you actually got your start mixing music for video games. Like, how did you get into that?
That one's interesting, because I went to school in Boston at this college called Berklee College of Music, and so before I started mixing scores, and even before I started mixing, I was back in Kuching, Sarawak represent. I was already producing bands and you know, doing things for local bands. You know, I would help them, like they'll come to me with a tune, for example, or a hip hop band came to me and said, hey, can we, you know, put this? And I was always very interested in like the programming side of things. So I would, like, you know, play the piano, play the guitar, program the bass, program the you know, the instrument, like the backing track, quote unquote, and then I'll record them singing on top of that, and then put it all together and like send it off to them. So when I went to Berklee, I had I had interest in being a arranger, a producer, and a mixing engineer. And so I learned the recording arts because I thought, like the producing part, I kind of pick up on the go. The arranging part, I learned how to write, which I did. And that all helped me with just that kind of helped me with my final goal. And, as part of the school projects, you kind of like have to kind of work with people and all that. It was encouraged for you to help people. So I worked on a lot of projects, and one day a friend of mine said, "Hey, come in, I want you to see something." And so happened he's Malaysian, and he he's now back in KL, so if Falk, you're listening, what's up? He called me and said, "Hey, can you check this out?" And I looked at it, and I don't know if any of you are fans of any video games, but like I was a big fan of Final Fantasy. So he played a scene, and I was like, "This is Final Fantasy. Like, are you doing a project on it?" And like school project, you can take like small clips and all that. And he said, "Actually, this hasn't been released." So I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, you know how you've been helping me during the late nights? I want you to mix this because you knew this specific software that was required to kind of mix this when the big composer came over from Japan." So I said, "Oh, okay." I tried doing that, got into it, and found a lot of satisfaction from that. And that's how I kind of got into it. And then, that was the Final Fantasy stuff. And then eventually got into Kingdom Hearts, and I did like Metal Gear Solid, and then what's that? I was Silent Hill or what? One of those. And, it's just like it started kind of rolling.
Wait, which Final Fantasy is this?
Oh, so it's 13.3.
Okay.
And 15.
And Metal Gear Solid?
Metal Gear Solid 5.
I'm gonna replay all that. And oh man, I have a different view of this. I'm like, oh, Alvin did this part.
Oh my god.
So how did you go from mixing music for video games to blockbuster films?
I had a mentor, obviously, who was he's a record producer as well. He's a record producer / score mixer. And so, when you come out to, like they give you a year of practical training in the States. So I moved out because I wanted to check out LA, which is on the West Coast. A lot of Malaysians, at least from my perspective, being from East Malaysia, is we see New York as like, the pinnacle of like US life, right? New York, and Boston was so close. So I traveled there a lot, but like I decided, I'm going to try LA. So I moved out to LA. And I kind of worked and interned under a couple of music producers who also work in film, and I ended up with this score mixer / music producer who he works with Hans Zimmer, and I got onto this. His old assistant was leaving the job, and I happened to be just, there. And my then girlfriend, now wife, said, "Hey, you should meet this guy because I think you guys get along," And I was like, "Sure, I would." So, and I met him, and he was like, "Oh, I did those I did 2 Pink records. I did Blur, I did Stereophonics." And he was like a big record producer. I'm like, "What?" And it's like, "Yeah, but I'm also a score mixer. So I do mix scores, and I produce the scores as well." And, I just so happened to, I kind of go way back with Hans and, all these composers, Henry Jackman and all that. And I just got off. I think he was just finishing up Captain America at that point, Winter Soldier.
Okay.
Or something like that. And so it's like, there's this new film, I don't know what it's called, something Kingsman. I'm like, sorry. I was just sitting in my car watching a trailer for that, and you telling me you're working on that. It's like, yeah. So that's how I kind of got my start, and the jaw dropped, and it was like, trial by fire basically. Is like, oh, you got to learn all of this. You got to get your recordings from, we recorded in the UK, like in London, where a lot of orchestral musicians have been recorded. And then, some extra different musicians have been recorded in LA, and kind of put it all together. And that has been that was, as they say, the start of it all. So, I kind of learned under him for a couple of years. And then that Christmas, because I was still in LA for the first year, I did a small little film, and I remember working through. Obviously, here in the States, you know, like Christmas is so huge,
Yeah.
so everyone take off, so no one's around, and they were like, "We have this small thing that's going to a Sundance Music Festival. Can you mix a score?" I'm like, sure." You know, it was a hip hop score. A lot of the score was actually songs that was written by Pharrell Williams. So I got to mix some of Pharrell Williams's music that was used to kind of make the score. And the film went to Sundance and won and got distribution. And I kind of, you know, from there I started growing my portfolio, if you will, and kind of did the video game and then did the score and then did like, you know, when people talk about score, a lot of times they talk about like the orchestral stuff, and you know, I do quite a big amount of that on top of doing like the band stuff. So like, you know, at the end, like I kind of started finding my niche of like what they call a hybrid score mixer, where it's not just orchestral, it's not just like band, it's not just electronic, and I kind of find a way to kind of mix it all together, you know.
Yeah. Well, but in the many scores that you've helped mix, right? Do you have one that's like the most memorable?
Well, I honestly right now I still like to say dope, just because, you know, it was a chance to kind of look into how, for, you know, like people like Pharrell does things, or like, you know, there was quite a lot of people attached to it. It was personal because it helped me get started as my own like solo project, and you know, that was very memorable to me. And obviously like the big ones like Kung Fu Panda and like, you know, like recently Mulan was, you know, for identity thing, it's you know, like it was huge to be able to contribute something where I could record, you know, like all the guzheng and all the you know, the pipa and all those Chinese instruments, and just kind of help, you know, like it's a childhood thing, right? Like you watch something and you're like, oh my God, I'm working on, you know. And then so yeah, those are the two scores I would say that's like still kind of like it means a lot to me.
Now, how long have you been in America? You went there to study, and then you've never come back. You've never returned.
You know, I do miss home a lot. I gotta say that first. The one thing is, I came to the States in 2013. I went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, and then moved out to 2011. Oh my goodness, it's 9 years. I've been here 9 years. It just hit me. I've been here 9 years. 2011, I left Boston for 2 years. And in 2013, I moved to LA. And I've been here ever since, you know, just because the industry is here, and you know, you kind of need to do the kind of meet and greet sometimes. And so, you know, it's my base for here for now. So yeah, 9 years, going on 10. Wow.
How is life different there compared to back in Kuching? Is Hollywood a tough industry? I'm sure Hollywood is a tough industry to be in, isn't it? Even for
you know, I'll be honest. It's you know, like the acting side is really tough, right? Because everyone wants to get in, and like you want to be part of the thing, and you know, you got to put your best foot forward. And like, you know, people like I mentioned before, people the people behind the scenes, they're a little more chill. You obviously, you know, still as you guys know, being in media, it's always a lot of you know, you guys are in front of the mic and I'm like behind the mic and kind of chill and all that. But like you just gotta be on your game. And I really love the fact that, you know, there is healthy competition. And I don't see it as a negative thing. I see it as a positive thing, because it keeps you on your toes and it makes you be the best you can be. And while it's competitive, it's not as for lack of a better term, cutthroat is what people say, you know, at least behind the scenes. And I see it as, you know, if you come here and you kind of do the work and you're a great person, I think it's doable. That's my point.
How often do you come back to Malaysia? Do you come back to Malaysia often?
I try to for the first few years, obviously with immigration and being in school and all that, it was hard, and you're not making money. So I try to come back once a year. Last year, I was fortunate enough to go back 3 times.
Wow.
Obviously,
What
for a
happened?
project.
Right.
Yeah. I went back to we did a recording with the Malaysian Philharmonic Orchestra, and then it was and then another time I went back because of my family. I just want to see them or miss them quite badly. And then the year before, I also went back twice. Actually, I go back pretty often. I'll be honest. There is like the thing about LA, and you were mentioning earlier, like what's the difference? That like I'm sorry, like Malaysian food rocks the world. There's no way on earth. I don't care even if it's LA and like I'm sitting right next to Britney Spears or whatever. Like there's no place in the world where the food's better than Malaysia. So that's one thing I really do miss. And like my nasi lemak, my laksa Sarawak, my mie kolo, or like my char kway teow, or my roti canai. Oh, I miss roti canai so badly. Like so. I'll
Don't you
be
get
honest,
frozen ones there?
But like there's a difference when you go to the mama and make you get the curry and you got the guan, you get everything.
Yeah. But in LA is even worse because they're very health conscious over there, right? So you get your quinoas and all your wheatgrass and everything.
You know what? Well, okay. We'll go into that for a bit because I if you guys met me like 2 years ago, I was about like 40 kilos heavier.
Whoa.
And yeah, and but long story short, I kind of like I didn't buy into the whole like health diet thing. I just one day started exercising because I have to propose like like I want to look good for the photos and all that lah. So like I started working out and all that. But now that I kind of feel like I'm at a good place, I don't LA is that's why I feel like I don't. That's the part I don't relate to as much. I really do want my nasi lemak, and I do really want my laksa Sarawak. So I try and make it at home, and that's that's the life here for me. And that's one thing you cannot do if you're in front of the screen. You know what I mean? Like I can take time and just chill and do what I want.
Nice. Now, what are some of the challenges though, being non-American in the industry that you are in and in America?
Well, being a non-American, straight up, the first thing that I can think of, and all my international friends, because a lot of my friends from school also moved out here that are non-American, is immigration. Immigration is hard. It's tricky. It's not the easiest thing in the world, and they make you go through a lot. And I think, first of all, you got to be able to secure a job, and then you got to be able to show that you're not. You're working to contribute to the country, and you're working to contribute towards the greater good of whatever industry you're in. For example, me and initially video games and then film. So the challenges was to do that while trying to, kind of get in the door and trying to, like support yourself. So thankfully, obviously I had a good support system back home with families and friends, and like, the moral support is important. And I think, like being, first of all, being Malaysian and being able to just like, kind of like bare knuckle and go do something is like, I think the most helpful thing to me that has happened to me. And like, I think, the first year being, here, like you're trying to learn a different city, first of all, then you're trying to learn a different culture, and you're trying to learn, again, we've talked about different foods and different way of communications. So all those are challenges that I think when I look back now, I was like, wow, those are really hard things, because like, like just like, not even like, even, between like US America and Canadian America, like it's already, like, people talk slightly differently, and like you can tell even neighboring states talk very differently. So you have to learn all this like idiosyncrasies, and you learn that the United States is called the United States because all the states are different. It's not like Malaysia, you go everywhere and it's like, hey, what's up, and everyone can talk to each other. Over here, it's like if you go from like Kansas to Arizona to like Florida to like New York to like Vermont to Los Angeles to North California, everyone has a slightly different culture, and it's so distinct, and it's hard to like you have to adapt to everything. So I think those were the biggest challenges. I think culturally understanding the United States and going through their immigration system is, I would say, those are the two most challenging things.
Okay. But are there any advantages being Malaysian in America and working?
There is, I'll be honest, our perspective is the biggest one. Like, people here are always looking for the greatest and latest, or like, especially in California, like you have Tesla's here, Google's here. I mean, North California, obviously, Apple's here. So, everyone's on the forefront of innovation. And a lot of these people, when you're non-American, you bring a very unique perspective. And I think, like, first of all, being from Sarawak, then from Malaysia, then from Asia, to go to a completely different culture, to then contribute to a thing that will then be disseminated worldwide. I think it's interesting to bring like a not just diverse but unique perspective to things. So you can bring, you create something that you show, a little bit of your identity, and also you show like you kind of make it even more unique. And that's what part of the creative side is, that you bring perspective to it.
Okay.
So I think that's the biggest part of it.
Okay. But what are the qualities of a person? What qualities must a person have to sort of be successful in an industry like yours? Must they go to LA? Must they work in LA to sort of make it in the score mixing industry?
Like, unfortunately, 95% of the things, or 98%, I would say, happens in Hollywood, in Los Angeles. So yeah, you kind of got to be here to kind of meet everyone. There is maybe 3 people in, I'm exaggerating, of course, in the UK, in London, that does it. But generally, it's either London or LA. And London's a very small, tight-knit group. So you gotta kind of move out here and kind of meet people to get started. I think one quality is to just positivity, perseverance, and just unwavering faith. You just gotta kind of push through, and it's like the hustle is know that the hustle is real, and kind of do it with a positive smile and show that like this is no big problem, because sometimes days do get long, but we all do it, and we all love what we do, and that's where we are. So I would say perseverance, and being in LA, it's a good start of where you should be.
But your journey seems to have been really smooth all this while. You get into video games, you get into blockbuster films, and now you're working on big films. Has there been any hiccup along the way?
It does feel like it's very smooth sailing. I think with anything, like I said, the one of the biggest challenge is immigration, right? I think, and when you don't have the license or the ability to work, then everything's affected. Then you kind of freeze up, right? Because you cannot move left, cannot move right. So I think, there was one point where I was, like, sometimes when you do your visas, or like, you're trying to sort that out to get your work permit and all that, you kind of in this mode of like, I don't know what's going to happen. I cannot leave because I have a work permit, but I don't have my full visa. And so if I leave, does that get resetted? And do I have to like worry about that? And how am I going to pay the lawyer if I'm not working, So that is, I think, one of the biggest challenge. And for the first 3 years, because I was going through that, I didn't go back home. And that was, I think, the biggest hurdle for me, is to not be able to see my family, and to not be able to be back in Malaysia, and to not be able to, eat all the delicious food, see all my beautiful friends, and just be, breathe the great Malaysian air. And so...
What's wrong with LA?
So,
I heard. What's wrong with LA air?
The great Malaysian hazy air.
The wonderful smoggy LA air.
LA is not the greatest when it comes to air pollutant index. Yeah, it's quite, there it has its own challenges because there's just so much cars, and I would equate it to be like I feel like LA feels a lot like KL, because like you kind of have to get on the highway to get from like, Puchong to like Jeras or something. It's the same here where like I live in Culver City, but like Disney lots in Burbank, and that's an hour away, right? So like
Wow.
it's like going from PJ to, but like an hour away can be, I don't know, 10 miles, which is like 15 kilometers, which is not very far, but it's just traffic and like, like we joke that the we have one very big freeway called the number is 405, and we joke that the 405 is the permanent parking lot of LA because
that's like the federal highway.
Exactly, yes, it's the federal highway. Exactly, yeah. So there we go. Those are the things that you kind of like. Oh, you're right, that's true. They got this and they got that, but
but don't you think you kind of struck out on luck, as in you were kind of lucky, because I'm sure there are score mixers based in LA who cannot get work, right?
Okay, to be fair, yes, that's very true. So that comes back to like, the qualities of being just persevering and just, understanding the hustle is real, and kind of like, not to say fake it till you make it, but like, kind of keeping your head down and working through it, and just never giving up, and never, always having faith in yourself.
Okay.
And like, for lack of a better term, like willing to take a lot of crap from people sometimes. And I think I'm pretty good at that. And I think I got really lucky, obviously like, like they're long, when they're long days, but you get used to it. And I start, you start finding a good balance, and like, like morning DJ hosts are the same thing, right? You guys have to wake up at 4 a.m. to get ready or whatever. And like, it's the same for us. Like we have to wait for files in London to land at 3 a.m. So it's just, it's how you lead your life. And if you can do it with a smiling face, then I think, like, why not?
But it would be a lot better if you had a Laksa Sarawak right next to you.
Oh my goodness, don't even get me started. Like, I have a nasi lemak store that I go to that's like kind of all right. I'm sorry, LA, but like, like it will do, So like, obviously.
Have you tried the instant Sarawak laksa?
No, not yet. You guys have to. You have to tell me where to get
What
those.
brand is
I
it?
don't know. I tell you what. There's instant Sarawak laksa, instant Penang laksa. You know what? I tell you what.
Sarawakians will only go for Sarawak laksa. Okay?
We will send it
don't
over
try.
to you. We will send you a box and then.
Can.
Now, Alvin, what advice would you give to young Malaysians who are looking to pursue a career in the music department of movie making, regardless of whether it's in America or in Malaysia?
I would say, don't be afraid to fail. I know that sounds very like, it sounds very like, what do you call it? Like,
Cliched.
blasé or whatever. Yeah, or like, yeah, exactly. And it's not cliche. I'm not saying it as like, don't be afraid to fail. You can do it. It's like, no, like literally go out and do things that people have not done, like amazing, I meet amazing people who, they do. Sometimes not all the ideas make it out, but they're willing to try. And for me, my advice is, I came out here and I did nothing different than anyone who was in Malaysia. My goal is to show people, at least, talking with you guys, talking with everyone, is just that anyone can do this. I'm not special, I'm the same guy. Like I said, I ate the same food, grew up in the same areas, drove on the same roads, like cursed at the same motorcyclist, like it's all the same. It's just that I'm just doing it in a different country.
And you've got an IMDb page.
I know, right. I had a friend who joked that it's like his goal in life is to have a IMDb page on his credit page. Boleh scroll, as long as he can scroll, he's happy already. I think that was awesome. And so I just, just do it. Like, not just do it. Like, don't be afraid to fail. Just go out and, like, be yourself and try things out. And if you fail, then move right along and try the next thing until you get to where you are, and there are a lot of us out here who are doing that, and it's the same thing. If you have the opportunity, go out. So yeah, I hope, Malaysians will see that we're just as competitive, people in the music industry and everywhere, like, I hope you guys get to speak to a couple more. But like all of us are, we're doing nothing different. It's just that we're like, oh yeah, let's do it. So there you go.
Okay. Now, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the Christina Aguilera track that you did for the movie Mulan? It's called Loyal, Brave, and True, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that track.
So that track, so I think, one thing you gotta understand from like a musical perspective is like, obviously with Disney, they always want to put out a song for every movie and all that. And Christina, while I've not met her, she like from just colleagues and all that, she's the most like the nicest person, and she's obviously immensely talented. So when it came to this score, originally the score, they wanted to somehow have like the score and the song kind of be part of the same thing, right? Because you want to be in the same world, like you don't want to have like a cordon bleu chicken with like kari ayam. Like you want to kind of be in the same kind of like same world. So the Loyal, Brave, and True was obviously a collaboration between a songwriter, the composer on the score, which is his name is Harry Gregson Williams, who is one of my mentors and one of my like I am very truly appreciative of what he's done for me in my career. Like he's the one who got me on the Meg and like Metal Gear Solid and all that, because he wrote the scores to that. And they collaborated and wrote the song, and they were like, hey, can you come and they put it, it was saying like, how do we make this so that we can honor the Chinese the Chinese part of the theme of this movie, and yet be like we want to honor it and do it right. So is there anything you can do? So then we thought, what, let's try some Guzheng, so and so then I was recording in Guzheng at that point, and the songwriter and the composer came in and it's like, hey, let's try this and all that. And that then ended up in the song, and when Christina sang it, it was like, wow, she's amazing, And then that's the song that they released. So that's the song that kind of represents the movie right now, until obviously I'm not giving anything away yet, but I hope everyone goes out and watch the movie. And I don't know what like when it's released in Malaysia because of COVID, but in the States they've kind of announced that they're doing an online release on Disney Plus.
Right.
And so yeah, I hope everyone goes to see it, and they'll hear that piece of music along with the gorgeous score that the composer and the whole team worked for tirelessly on for many months, even years. So that song is beautiful. It makes like I love it. I think it's a great song. There's a lot of heart put into it. I think everyone gave it all, and it's literally loyal, brave, and true to the movie. And that's the song. So go check the song out and go check the movie
We'll
out.
play it. We'll try to play it.
Yeah.
When we play your interview, we will play the song as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, have you written out your Grammy speech yet?
No, I think I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to write that right after this. No, I mean, we all do one. Obviously awards would be fun, but no, I've never done anything Grammy. The closest to that was the Golden Horse Awards a couple years ago, which Astro was kind enough to like have us all go, including ZRV and obviously Rendra Zoawi.
And this was for Ola Bola, was it?
Yeah, this was for Ola Bola, yes. And that was the closest I've gone to being in front of the camera on the red carpet.
Nice. So what's next for you,
Yeah.
Alvin? Like, what are you working on now?
It's the funny thing where like you don't you work on really cool stuff and you don't really talk about it until it comes out, right? Or it's announced at least.
Okay.
So
it's P&C right now.
It kind of a little bit. I wish I can talk about it because there's two really cool things that's about to come out. hopefully, you know, like I'll share with you guys when, you know, obviously when it's been announced in the theater.
But it's in your it's in your IMDb page, isn't it?
If you go check it out, maybe, yeah. So go check it out.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Something
So,
with
yes.
Tom Cruise in it.
I cannot acknowledge or deny that. But, you know, I can say, you know, IMDb has a good record for everyone who works on the shows. So, you know, I would say go there and check it out. But yes, you know, go. That's a good place to kind of, you know, keep up with people, I guess.
Wow, you
because you know it's just a directory,
right?
Sorry,
you almost went Maverick on us on that one.
Huh.
I'm just saying. You know, yeah.
I know. I hear you. And like, you know, the IMDb will say it all. You know. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Alvin, for giving us a bit of your time and telling us about what you do. It really does. We're very proud of you for being a successful Malaysian abroad.
Oh,
Sarawakian specifically.
Oh, Sarawakian.
You know what? You Malaysians in the US, y'all should just meet up and then do something big. Like you should give Yuna a call and do something with her.
Actually, I'll tell you what. So 4th of July, you know, I don't know if this is going to be recorded, but 4th of July, right? People here, they celebrate the Independence Day.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bunch of Kuching people who call themselves Kuching Lang, and there's like 130 people who meet somewhere in California and do a big party. It just happened that I missed it the past few years, but like they all gather together, and then once in a while there's like Malaysians. There's a huge Malaysian community out here because I think the consulate general is here, so he has gatherings once in a while. So we do meet up, and you know, like you can't go wrong with Malaysians and food. I swear, like it's like I was down in Hollywood one day, like, you know, trying to go to a show, and I heard someone's like, oh my god, blah blah blah, and it's like oh man, I wish you can go get some roti canai. I was like, are you Malaysian? Instantly, random person, the most random encounter you get, and it's like, oh, I'm from Ipoh. I'm like, what are you doing here? It's like, oh, I study here and there. I do filmmaking. I'm like, wow, great. So, you know, like it's not hard to spot the Malaysian. I mean, you know, so that's what we do. Back in Boston, same thing. There's a Malaysian restaurant, and we sometimes have it cater or like, you know, satay or like curry.
Penang.
Yes, yeah, Penang. Yeah.
Well, have you been there?
Yeah, it's near the Common though, right?
Yeah. It's you know, it's
Char Kway Teow for $12 and stuff.
Yeah, I mean chicken rice for anything above $5. I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And then I realized, like, is it worth it if I'm here and spending $12 on Char Kway Teow? You know what I mean? But yeah. So
yeah. I've been there. Yeah.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Alvin. All the best.